G'day, I'm talking to you from my Parliament House office in Canberra using my super high-tech $30 webcam. The Senate this week's been debating a whole lot of legislation and trying to get a whole lot of it out of the way so everybody can get out of Canberra for the winter and not come back until August. The legislation that's got the most attention this week and received the most time has been in the area of workplace relations, probably not surprisingly. This is the legislation where the government actually drafted their advertising campaign before they got round to drafting the legislation. And with that sort of level of propaganda, it's not surprising really that even the legislation's title has its own piece of propaganda. That's it there, the Stronger Safety Net Bill. I suppose you could say it's roughly accurate. It is a stronger safety net than what was there at the moment, but that's because the government completely destroyed the safety net that actually existed before they won the Senate at the last election. The Democrats actually put in place a very strong safety net called a no disadvantage test, which meant people had some flexibility in their workplace to reach agreements around particular areas and have some variations, but were not able to be forced down so that their total conditions and pay were worse off than what they would have got through the award. All of that safety net's been ripped away now that the government's putting back a few threads. They're calling it a stronger safety net. Yeah, half true. Well, maybe a quarter. But it's probably not as bad as some of their others. Workplace relations has been a good case study in propaganda as law titles of laws. This one here, the Better Bargaining Bill, which actually made it harder for some people to bargain. One that was notorious in its time, which was probably a precursor of what the government ended up doing when they did get control of the Senate back in 1999. This legislation didn't pass. It's called the More Jobs, Better Pay Bill. It was arguable that there would have been more jobs around, although it was certainly arguable that that was actually not true, but beyond dispute that many people would have ended up with worse pay. But it's not just workplace relations. Migration law was also another one where propaganda and for titles of legislation was always a good one. This one here, Judicial Review Bill, which actually removed judicial review. This one was a particular favourite of mine from 2002, the Migration Amendment Procedural Fairness Act. That actually removed procedural fairness. And even just a couple of years ago, sadly, another piece of legislation that did pass, the Employment and Workplace Relations Amendment Welfare to Work Act, which actually meant that people on welfare ended up being on lower paid welfare. I'm not quite sure how that gets you into work, but it's in the title of the legislation, so I guess it must be true. But I guess in some ways nothing really beats the title of the law that even the government dare not speak the name of these days, and that's good old Work Choices. The Work Choices Act, which actually reduced people's choices. And clearly that's the reason why we're here this week, why we're debating the stronger safety net than the one that we ripped away completely before bill, and why, frankly, whatever gets passed this week, workplace relations and work choices will be an issue right through to the federal election. It's also why the Senate is such a crucial issue at the next election, because the reason why we've got work choices, the reason why it's such a mess, the reason why people's pay and condition are being driven down, it's not because Mr Howard won the election in 2004, it's because he won control of the Senate and enabled him to push through this sort of extreme legislation, destroy the safety net that had been in place before. What happens in the Senate next election is just as important as who ends up winning government in lots of ways, particularly in the workplace relations area. So we can put all the propaganda advertising campaigns, propaganda legislation titles all to one side. Let's just look at the facts and hope people make the right choice come polling day.